The Rock and Ava Raine. Dwayne Johnson is not only one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, he's also a global icon, known for his charisma and work ethic. His daughter, Ava Raine, born Simone Johnson, entered WWE carrying that legacy, but chose a path that honors it in her own way. Instead of stepping into the spotlight with flashy moves or big promos, she quietly went to NXT to learn the craft from scratch. Ava embraced a serious and mysterious character, showing she wasn't interested in riding her father's fame, but wanted to earn her place through hard work and dedication. She's currently the general manager of NXT, at the age of just 23. Growing up with a father whose name fills arenas around the world, Ava could have relied on that recognition, but she decided to build her own identity. Ava's journey is still progressing, but her steady commitment to developing her skills shows that she's here to stay for years. 2. Vince and Stephanie McMahon. Being Vince McMahon's daughter meant Stephanie was always going to be part of WWE, but she didn't just show up for the sake of it. She threw herself into everything. On screen, she was one of the most believable authority figures the company ever had, playing the villain in a way that made people really want to punch her in the face. Off-screen, Stephanie was involved in business, branding, and helped push women's wrestling forward. She wasn't a full-time wrestler, but she knew how to make moments feel big, whether it was by cutting a promo or just standing next to someone important. She made her in-ring debut in 1999 and even won the WWE Women's Championship in 2000. Over the years, she participated in several high-profile storylines, including those involving Triple H, The Authority, and the McMahon family saga. Beyond TV, Stephanie became WWE's chief brand officer in 2013 and helped spearhead initiatives like the Women's Evolution. She was one of the key voices behind pushing for women to headline WrestleMania for the first time in 2019. Stephanie didn't try to be Vince, but she clearly learned from him and brought her own perspective to a business she was raised in. 3. Jim Neidhart and Natalya. Natalya is the daughter of Jim the Anvil Neidhart, who made his name as one half of the Hart Foundation, known for his raw power and loud personality. But when Natalya stepped into WWE, she didn't just ride the wave of her family name. She worked her way up and quietly earned respect over time. She trained in the famous Hart Dungeon and took that serious technical approach into every match. While other wrestlers relied on character shifts or big moments, Natalya stayed consistent. She wasn't in the main spotlight, but she was always there, always delivering. Fans eventually noticed her reliability, and she started getting loud pops during her entrances. Natalya has carried the legacy of her father for the entire Hart family, including her uncle Bret, who is arguably one of the most iconic wrestlers in history. She also played a major role in helping lift the women's division when it was still at its early stages. 4. Carrie and Lacey Von Eric. Carrie Von Eric came from one of wrestling's most respected families, and when his daughter Lacey decided to get into the business, fans were curious to see what she'd bring. She spent a short time in WWE's developmental system before moving to TNA, where she found a bit more success, even winning tag team gold. She had the look and name value, but after a few years, she stepped away from wrestling entirely. Her run wasn't long, but it reminded fans of the legendary Von Erich name, especially those who grew up watching world-class championship wrestling. Even though she didn't stay in the spotlight, her time in the ring gave fans a brief look at what the next generation of the Von Erich family could have been. 5. Mick and Noel Foley. Mick Foley built his career by doing things most sane people wouldn't even try. Whether it was flying off steel cages or wrestling with tacks stuck in his body, he became a legend by giving everything he had. But behind the bruises and the wild characters, there was always a soft-spoken, thoughtful man who cared more about people than fame. His daughter, Noel Foley, grew up around that world and saw both the chaos and the fun of it. For a while, Noel trained to be a wrestler and was even featured on WWE Network content, where fans got to see their bond up close. She didn't just want to be a personality, she wanted to understand the craft and earn her place. Though she eventually stepped away due to injuries, Noel continued to stay involved through hosting, content creation, and speaking out about mental and physical health. What makes their story special isn't just that they're both connected to wrestling, but that they genuinely support each other's journeys. 6. Rick and Charlotte Flair. When people talk about wrestling royalty, Ric Flair is always one of the first names that comes up. He wasn't just good in the ring, he was larger than life. The suits, the talking, the way he carried himself, it was also iconic. But despite having him as a role model, his daughter Charlotte never tried to emulate him. She wanted to do her own thing. She played sports, stayed out of the spotlight, and for a long time, wrestling wasn't really her path. But in the year 2012, she eventually stepped into the ring as a unique diva. Charlotte wasn't your typical wrestler, as she was way more athletic, strong, and technical than the other female wrestlers. Since then, she's won the Raw Women's Championship 6 times, the SmackDown Women's Championship 7 times, and also became the NXT Women's Champion and the Divas Champion. She's the only woman to have headlined WrestleMania in a singles match, and is tied for the most overall women's world title reigns in WWE history. It's fair to say that she has absolutely matched her father's legacy. 7. Roddy and Teal Piper. Roddy Piper is remembered as one of the most original voices in wrestling. Whether he was smashing a coconut on someone's head or turning a promo into pure chaos, he brought energy that was impossible to ignore. His daughter Teal Piper did not rush into wrestling. She studied acting and trained in both theater and stunt work before deciding to step into the ring. In 2019, she signed with Women of Wrestling and began developing her character while also learning the fundamentals. Later that year, she made her in-ring debut in WOW as part of Season 2, where she performed as a heel and showcased strong microphone skills similar to her father's. That same year, she also entered the Casino Battle Royale at AEW's All Out pay-per-view in Chicago, giving her a high-profile moment early in her wrestling career. Teal continues to work on the independent circuit and has expressed interest in developing both as a performer and a creative force. While she's still early in her journey, her mix of promo ability, stage presence, and wrestling background shows she's serious about building something that reflects both her training and her family's legacy. 8. Eddie and Shaul Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero wasn't just loved because he was great in the ring. He was loved because you could feel every bit of who he was when he performed. Whether he was cheering to win or pouring his heart into a championship moment, there was something about Eddie that made people care. His daughter, Shaul Guerrero, signed with WWE in 2010 and began training in Florida Championship Wrestling. She didn't try to imitate her father's style, but created her own persona as Raquel Diaz, complete with dark makeup, over-the-top promos, and a bold character she called the Ultra Diva. She made history at FCW by becoming both the Queen and the Divas Champion at the same time, something no other woman in that promotion had done. Eventually, Shaul stepped away from full-time wrestling, choosing other creative paths, but she never stopped representing her family. Whether as a performer or announcer, she carries Eddie's name with pride. 9. Tully and Tessa Blanchard. Tully Blanchard made a career out of being sharp, dangerous, and always a few steps ahead. As part of the original Four Horsemen, he earned a spot in wrestling history as someone who could back up every word he said. His daughter Tessa got into wrestling at a time when women's wrestling was finally starting to be taken seriously, and she made sure people noticed her. She trained under George South, wrestled all over the indies, and made early appearances in WWE's Mae Young Classic and NXT. But she didn't just stick around there. Instead, she made her mark in Impact Wrestling. Tessa won the Knockouts Championship and had powerful matches with wrestlers like Gail Kim and Jordynne Grace. Then in 2020, she shocked everyone by defeating Sami Callihan to become the first woman to hold the Impact World Championship, a title that had always belonged to men before her. Tessa didn't just live up to the Blanchard name, she absolutely owned it. 10. Santino Marella and Ariana. Santino Marella was a literal clown in WWE who won the Intercontinental Championship and became a fan favorite from around 2007 to 2014. He was never great in the ring, but his comedic role made every scene memorable. This guy almost won the Royal Rumble in 2011 with his goofy finisher, the Cobra. His daughter, Ariana Grace, however, is the complete opposite. She debuted on NXT as a badass heel and is quickly making her way up the ladder. She's athletic, has good in-ring skills, and talks like a pro, which makes her the complete package. It's only a matter of time until she makes her debut on Raw or SmackDown. 11. Steve King and Electra Lopez. Steve King was never the guy holding titles or cutting long promos in front of screaming crowds, but if you watched WWF in the late 70s and early 80s, chances are you saw him in the ring. He wasn't there to be a star. He was there to make others look good, to show up night after night, and do the job the right way. The same mindset shows up in his daughter, Carissa Rivera, who now wrestles as Electra Lopez in WWE. She didn't burst into the spotlight with hype. She came in focused, trained hard, and proved she belonged. When she joined Legado del Fantasma in NXT, it wasn't just about being a part of a faction. She brought real fire to every match and proved she could hold her own. You can see her father's work ethic in the way she carries herself. Tough, serious, and completely locked in. 12. Robbie and Zia Brookside. Robbie Brookside made a name for himself in the British wrestling scene long before most fans in the US ever heard his name. He was a key figure in the UK's World of Sport era, and later brought that same knowledge to WWE as a respected coach at the Performance Center. Known for his old-school fundamentals and deep understanding of ring psychology, Robbie helped shape the next generation of talent behind the scenes, mentoring names who would go on to main event major shows. His daughter, Zia Brookside, grew up around the ring ropes, but didn't just inherit her spot. She started wrestling at only 16 years old, competing in promotions like Stardom in Japan and Rev Pro in the UK, before signing with WWE in 2018. At just 19, she entered the inaugural NXT UK Women's Championship Tournament, and later became a regular face on NXT UK programming. What sent Zia apart wasn't just her heritage or experience, it was her energy. She leaned into a bubbly, upbeat persona that stood out from the usual brooding characters, combining agility with a strong babyface connection that got the crowd behind her.